Yes. I hear that music. Harkens back to a simpler time. Actually, it doesn't really. Siesta Ocho, beautiful music. Pastec, that is an open source group that we've been playing for many years, actually, here. Going on 9 years here at Old KRUU. I'm getting pretty old back. This is James Moore. Welcome to City Business. Joining us in the studio, the 4th councilman from the 4th Ward. That is Michael Halley. We're seeing some activity off to our right here. You can't see that in our listening audience. I don't know. The listening audience just doesn't see the same. Speaking of seeing the same, behind the camera, Jason Strong, Fairfield Media Center, a good community guy. You know, someone who shows up. What a great amenity it is for the city. And speaking of amenity and a womenity, oh man, this is pre-coffee too, guys. Michael Halley, good to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
We've got a beautiful fall day going, although we're talking about some freezing temperatures later this week. But so City Haps, what's the Haps?
Well, the actual meeting for October 27th, 2014 was relatively short. Kept it for like half an hour. It was amazing. Yeah. So we'll talk about that, but then there are other city topics.
Wait a second. Is that a record?
No, we've done, since I've been on the council, almost 5 years, I think we had one that was about 15 minutes. Cool. And that was a regular city council. That wasn't some sort of special. So sometimes there's just not much going on.
Short and sweet, right?
Yep. But we have other things we can talk about that are city related.
Great.
That weren't on the agenda.
Okay.
We had an annual report from Rebecca. Oh no, I'm going to call her Huggins, but what's her new last name? Johnson. Thank you. She's married now. It's Mr. Johnson. Rebecca Johnson, the public library director. And she basically showed that the circulation from last year to the year before is pretty much on par. And she said she went to a meeting of other medium-sized, kind of funny title, medium-sized libraries or some sort of association, where most of them were experiencing lower circulation. So we have a very well-used library. It's great.
It is a beautiful library, I have to say. I'm a big fan of libraries in general, but that one from Rubis on, I don't know, it's a Rubicon.
It's a good one. She also updated the council on staying up to date on technology changes so people can actually download books through the website onto their devices. So that's becoming more and more the norm. You know, you can put hundreds of books on a tablet smaller than a paperback novel. So a lot of people are taking advantage of that technology. And so she kind of explained how it's done. It is, in a sense, checked out when they download it. Some of them they can keep forever. Some of them expire. And it's interesting, you know, the whole paperless, you know, the paperless office. Now it's the paperless library.
It's interesting. There has not been a platinum record sold this year yet from a number of reasons. iTunes down a little bit, but everything is different and new, and it's a different, interesting world. And you have to. I'm still one of those guys that loves the actual paper. You smell it, and I love the library being there. So it's great. They have a great board, and it's fantastic. Good to hear.
Very involved. And the final thing was the mayor asked about their solar array they have on the roof, and Rebecca reported that last month utility bills compared to the year before. Now you have to take into account weather, but not taking into account weather differences was $1,000 less. So that's significant. So I know they'll have a payback period from what they invested into that array, and I'd like to see them add to it. There's room on the roof for more, and just fill that roof up with some solar panels.
Sure, yeah. We'd like to see a few more these parts too, but you know what? It's there are things you can do along with that. Our crack team, the board and IT guys, are looking at new computers that are on the TV. You can see this about smaller than my fist. Where our computers have been, Michael, you know, because you're also a show host, a reasonable alternative, Fridays at 8 p.m. with Matt Molno. And that, I don't know why I did that voice.
That's a good one.
A little scary, but at any rate.
It's Halloween.
Yeah, there you go. It's a tiny little computer that takes much, much less energy and has much, much more power. They're looking at it because they're doing things with Nigeria and different things overseas. But combining those elements with the power is another way to squeeze the squeeze box.
Yeah, get more bang for your buck.
There you go. Thank you. I knew there was
get
an
more
analogy.
Juice for your son.
But at any rate, so
see, you rub off on me when I come on the show.
That's good or bad, I'm not sure. But at any rate,
It's both.
for public library, they're one of my favorite places. Congratulations, good work on that. And I know they're good at keeping track of what they're doing.
Oh yeah,
and a good crew there.
Very meticulous in a good way. So they're the first city building to have solar panels.
Yes.
Hopefully not the last. All right, we had only one resolution, and that was to declare our official intent to basically put the bonds for the pool and gym construction out to bid, I suppose is what you would call it. But basically, you just talk to local banks and other banks that are interested in purchasing those bonds. So essentially, just like anything, when you borrow money, you pay it back with interest. City government's no different. And the payback method that the voters approved, 2/3 in favor, was through a slight increase in property tax for the duration of the loan. That's how we'll pay for the city's portion of the pool and gym project. But when you look at, we got almost $9 million total for the projects, both the outdoor pool and indoor gym. And 1/3 of that is coming from the tax money. The rest privately raised, plus the grant from the $1 million grant from the state. That's pretty good. I think that's pretty good leveraging of tax money. Mayor report, he really didn't have anything.
What?
I know.
I don't believe you.
Well, he took a cool picture. He took some cool pictures of the skate park.
Yeah,
so on
that's
Sunday, I don't know if anyone's on Facebook. They might have seen him on the City of
awesome.
Fairfield government page. So that is, I believe, open this week. But before...
Pretty snappy pictures.
It was pretty cool. Yeah. So before they deem it done, the people who build them, Spawn Ranch, is it Spawn or Spawn Ranch from L.A., they actually ride it once it's ready. So they were out there on their boards and going up and down, doing cool tricks. I don't know skater terms, so I'm not even going to try. Anyway, it was...
whoosh and floos.
All that good
and
stuff.
And floofer-darns
Yeah.
and dang doodles. I think pretty much, I don't want to get
That was
technical.
it.
I don't want to get technical on
you. Got it. So they were doing all that good stuff.
But it was funny. I did hear some bemoaning of the younger ones from the previous generation going, dang, where was our skate park when and they're going,
oh, yeah.
well, I'm in my 30s now. I don't know if I can still do it.
Yeah,
but
get out there.
Get out there.
Yeah, give it a go. I mean, the guys who were building it look like they're in their 30s or older and having a great time.
And it looks like it's obviously well constructed and all that.
Yeah, they're very good at what they do.
For the long haul. I always wonder, when it's filled with snow and all that, but obviously there's drainage and everything that goes.
Yep. So it's open this week, and
Cool.
the basketball court that will go with it will be constructed and probably not open this year. Maybe, probably not. Freezing temperatures coming. It's probably unlikely to get that done. But by next spring, we'll have both the skate park and a fully lit outdoor basketball court.
Wow.
Pretty
That's
cool, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, donors. Couldn't have done it without you. Woohoo! Jason's going to add in some sound effects. All right. Couple of committee reports. A very short one from Economic Development. Met with the Housing Task Force. We just had a public meeting where we invited a gentleman who has worked in this kind of field before, of spurring housing development. Invited maybe about 20 people came, local developers. And these are I'm not talking big shot developers. I'm talking like husband and wife who are building a duplex and people who are in the house construction business as contractors, and to come and hear and discuss and circulate ideas. How can the city encourage that kind of development? Because we are without a certain level of housing, that there's a demand and not a supply. So it's getting close to the point where this housing task force will have recommendations to bring to the council for consideration. We're working closely with FEDA, Fairfield Economic Development Association.
Excellent.
Yeah, good people. And none of us are interested in waiting for the new city administrator. That's coming up here, city administrator update.
Okay. I just want to say FEDA also did a great job working with the Ledger and the Chamber with the debates this last week, and we do have those. If you're interested, you can come to the website archived. They're also, I think, available at Fairfield Media Center as well. And but they did a great job, I think, in an important thing, election coming up in a short, just next week. So
yeah, it's great that organizations set those things up, those kind of things, those debates. I mean, I listened to it because I wasn't able to be there, and I was able to watch it on FMC's YouTube channel in its entirety. So the city administrator still on track to hire someone by the end of the year and start after the new year, but that person's going to take a little while to figure out exactly what's going on. So we on the committee felt like, well, we can keep moving forward on this and make these recommendations to the council before that time, because we have some developers who have land and are anxious to get started. I know one on the north side of town and one on the south side of town. And if we had some incentives in place, some way of helping them finance, at this point we're looking at TIF, where it wouldn't cost the city anything, but a way to help the developers with the infrastructure cost that would then be paid back by the new property taxes developed by created by the development, then we will. So more on that later. Then my favorite committee, the Environment Committee. I say that because I'm the chair of that committee. We had a meeting. We had two things we discussed. One was a local citizen is working with a group, and it's about concern about the overuse of antibiotics in agriculture, and that in a lot of cases, especially with a confined animal operation, antibiotics are actually just included in the feed. All animals get it all the time, and the thinking is, well, then no, they won't get sick. What that does is it can build up an antibiotic resistance.
It also was found to help fatten them.
Oh, really?
And that's part of it. And so they've shifted, if you're not doing it to fatten them, but for farmers, I mean, it's an interesting thing.
It's a topic. It's a big topic,
and they're related. Yeah. Obviously, they don't get sick. They're not going to be. Yeah. But I didn't mean to interrupt.
But the concern is that antibiotic resistant strains will develop, and therefore we won't have the ability to treat human diseases with the same antibiotics that if they get overused in agriculture. So the plan of attack with this was they have these two bills that are being considered by both the Senate and Congress. And the group that's pushing for it is trying a new tactic where they get city councils to adopt a resolution supporting these bills. So in a lot of ways, it's very symbolic. It's not making a policy change in the community, but basically saying we as a city government support these measures on a federal level. Now, that's never really been anything the Fairfield City Council has ever done. In a sense, it's nice to be shielded from federal government or federal politics on the local level. On the local level, we don't have parties. We build consensus. We have a solution-oriented approach. We're everyone's in it together, trying to make the city better. I think the federal peeps could learn something from the local peeps, and I really don't want it to go the other way around, where we start debating federal issues on a local level. There are some small towns that do that, debating things that are outside the scope of local government. It just creates discord and disharmony and essentially gums up the works and maybe pits people who otherwise would work well together against each other if they feel like they're on different sides of an ideological argument. So for these reasons, I think that's just me talking personally. My other two committee members, Doug Flournoy and Darren Hamilton, also felt this isn't something the council that we want to bring to the council at this time. Maybe at some point, if it was further along, we would, but that's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
It's not that it's not an important issue. We just didn't feel like it had a place in what we do here as a city, which is just it's just a different machine. It's a different level of government. It's a different style of government.
It is. I'm going to be, as usual, a bit of a devil's advocate, because I noticed, like in the city of Seattle, they decided to pass a resolution declaring Columbus Day Indigenous Peoples Day. I know Minneapolis has done that. So, in the run-up to the Iraq War, many city councils across the country, including New York, where the 9/11 attacks happened, did what was basically a symbolic gesture that does not have teeth, but at least is saying, as a community, we're looking at these things. So I guess I can go either way on those. Because certainly an argument that it doesn't have teeth is one not to do it, but I don't know. I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, but in this particular instance, actually supporting specific bills, this was the first time, at least this group had ever tried getting a city to say, we support this bill. Now,
Different thing.
Yeah, now, and Darren Hamilton is a very detail-oriented council member.
Yep.
He said, I haven't read these bills. How can I say I can support them? And it's true. I mean, you get a lot of that situation where I experienced a little bit of that even locally. We passed a new tree ordinance, and then later when someone violated it, a couple of people saying, wait, that's illegal? I said, well, did you read the ordinance? It wasn't 1,000 pages. It was, 4 pages, but it can happen.
Unlike some of those federal bills that are like...
Exactly. So people will sometimes pass things, they don't really know what's in them. We felt like, well, those, again, it's just a different level to support an actual bill.
Okay.
But to support a cause, or I know that the mayor, I believe, joined in a bunch of mayors who decided we're going to deal with climate change on a local level. We're not going to wait for the federal government to do anything. So I think that you're right. It can be times important to have these symbolic gestures or these local initiatives. This one, particularly also that we're in such an agricultural area of the country, didn't want to stir up trouble because, there are people who make their living with confined animal operations, and I think we have to set aside our personal feelings about those, and that's more of a county issue. They have to deal with that kind of stuff within the city. There isn't any use of antibiotics in that way because there's no agriculture in that level in the city. All right, moving on to the one other thing we discussed.
Okay,
and I had a little fun. Jason was there, and he knows what I did. I wanted to talk about leaf burning, so I brought in like a nice little leaf. I held it up, and then I held up a lighter just to, see if I could get a little rise out of people. Like, wait, he's not going to burn that leaf right here, right? Because no one wants to smell burning leaf indoors, right? Well, that's not much different than smelling them outdoors. We have this perception that the air goes on forever, and what I burn in my yard, how can that bother you across town? But the air and the atmosphere is limited, and it doesn't. That smoke matter doesn't move that far. So the point I was just making was that I wasn't trying to stir up trouble with the police or the fire chief, though. Apparently,
the extinguishers were out.
He was ready to act if I had put that flame to that leaf, but I wasn't going to. Just that while some of us, I like the smell of burning leaves. I think it's kind of nostalgic and nice. But to some people, that smell means I have to run for cover. It means I'm going to have an asthma attack or have some sort of respiratory. Already somebody has some respiratory illness. It just aggravates it. So I listed a bunch of alternatives to burning, including composting on site, composting at the city compost site at the corner of Jackson and 20th. You can put a blade on your lawnmower that chops the leaves up, and then this stays there on the lawn. And
you mean it's a special kind of blade?
Yeah, I think it's called a composting blade or mulching blade.
Gotcha.
It's a mulching blade. And you can bag them. If you want to put them in the brown bags, Waste Management will take them to the compost site.
And that's a good thing to know. How does that work? That's
the bags?
Yeah. Is it just with the regular pickup?
Yeah, they cost money. So that's why some people are like, well, I don't want to cost money. But yeah, you can put them out with the regular pickup and Waste Management takes them.
But it's particular bags that you have to use.
Yeah, you got to buy them.
Okay. And where are those available? Is it only from the city or is it from...
The city does have them. I think the grocery stores have them too.
Oh, so yeah. Okay.
So Waste Management.
We're hearing from the background.
Oh, that's
here.
right. Waste Management. It has to be the official Waste Management because they're the ones who pick them up.
Okay.
So they have the contract to do that. But there's another alternative, and that's contact someone like former City Councilman Jim Rubis, who loves taking your leaves off your hands because to him it's free organic material.
Right.
So there are people who will just take it for you if you just make an arrangement. If you put it by the curb, like say in a black bag, plastic bag, that won't get picked up. So, except for maybe by a rogue gardener. So anyway, just all these alternatives. We're not looking necessarily at a leaf burning ban that may come along at some point. About half the cities in Iowa currently have them. Oh. Just to protect those sensitive citizens from the leaf smoke.
But it's just a certain season, right? And
yeah, right now.
What is the rule there? Do you remember?
The rule that was put in place about 10 years ago is supposedly a compromise between those who want to burn and those who are irritated by the smoke. October, November, and April are the only months it's permitted. And every day of the week except for Sunday, Monday, and Friday. So 4 days of the week you can burn, 3 days you can't.
Wow.
I
Okay.
know.
So
it's only
I would have thought they would have done the whole weekend if that's an issue. But so
Yeah,
basically, Friday no, and then Sunday and Monday no. So Saturday, okay. I guess people are off work, so it's
Yeah.
a chance they can do it. But interesting. So
well,
that's good to know.
the thing is that there are people who actually, and I mean this in a very literal sense, cannot go outside when there's leaf smoke in the air. So they are not able to enjoy the outdoors.
But I'm just.
So that's why they're trying to give certain days that they would know.
You can't see me on the radio, but it's like there are people that go outside when they're spraying the stuff on the crops and for the what is that stuff called, the glyphosate stuff, and yeah, it's a interesting zone. Also, where we sit in Iowa just happens to be one of the worst ragweed and pollen. It's just just one of those things. But anyway, on a brighter note, what else you got?
Well. Just a quick mention that I was told by our public works director last night, Daryl Bisgard, that the mulch and compost is piling up at the compost site, and we're about to have all the brush that was accumulated since spring ground, and so he's encouraging people to come get it. And so anybody who has gardens, or I don't care if you're a contractor, contractors can't dump, but you're welcome to come get the stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go take a picture and post it online later of what the compost piles look like. They're kind of these mounds, and then the mulch pile is obvious. But that's part of the process. We love people bringing their stuff. We love grinding it up for them and making it available. But if it builds up too much, I'm not sure what will happen. We only have so much space out there. And I know people will find this valuable. It's not the like A grade compost because we didn't add wet material, but it's still good stuff. Would add to the soil mix. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put the word out. Please come pick it up. Anybody who wants it. I mean, farmers can take it. And
where's that again?
The corner of 20th, South 20th, and West Jackson.
Okay, so back sort of by behind Hy-Vee and further.
That area of town. It's past where the auxiliary school building where the buses are parked.
And speaking of soil compost, I just interviewed Green Iowa AmeriCorps. There's 6 cities where 5 AmeriCorps are located now, and they're doing weatherization projects and so forth. If you're listening Wednesday, 3:30 p.m., a soil alchemy lab open to the public, free and all that, if you want to check out some of these different aspects. And that's Prana Miller and Douglas Tours and others. So they're going to be here at least for a year, which is a pretty cool thing for the city.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, so lots of projects coming up. We had a project update of the things that were finished this year. But I do want to address a couple of things before we finish that aren't on the agenda, but have been discussed about.
Just want to remind listeners, you are tuned in to City Business. This is James Moore with Michael Halley, 4th Ward, also FMC in the house. And we also thank FMC for actually getting the audio that we're using for the debates, if you're interested, with Reed versus Finn or Hansen versus Shipley. And just remind you, a week from today is the voting day. If many have voted early, but all that. But City Business can be heard after each City Council meeting, lunchtime 12:30, the following dinner time Thursday 6:30 p.m., or the following Monday breakfast time 6:30 a.m. to keep you up to snuff on what's going down there at the City Hall. So what else you got?
All right, a couple issues. Tenco, who bought the house on East Burlington to use as a crisis home, finally, after buying the house and beginning renovations, did bring it to the Board of Adjustment requesting a zoning variance, a change in zoning or variance in the zoning to allow them to use the property for for business rather than residential, and it was denied unanimously. Now that Board of Adjustment, that's a volunteer group of citizens who are appointed by the council to serve that purpose. So their decision actually is not something that can be overturned by the council, which is interesting. But I heard some criticism that, it was just because people in the area didn't want it. But the Board of Adjustment, their job is to ensure that properties in a certain zoning are used for a particular purpose. Now, you can argue about that kind of zoning where this whole area of town is only residential and this area is industrial. And there are people who argue that mixed use, at least with maybe not industrial and residential, but residential and commercial, isn't such a bad thing. It's actually can allow people to live closer to where they work. But in this case...
Which we have in some areas.
In some areas, yeah. So maybe the zoning could be looked at, but in this particular neighborhood, it's entirely residential. There's nothing commercial really nearby. Some of the concerns were parking and other things, and apparently the group of neighbors who opposed having it there did some research and found that none of the 10 co-crisis homes in other communities were in residential neighborhoods. So they were able to convince the board on the merits of the zoning laws specifically that it wasn't appropriate. Some people were saying, no, it's just these people who just didn't want it in my backyard. Well, they might have had that as their reasoning, but their arguments were sound in terms of the zoning laws. So
how big is the group?
I don't know.
The adjustment
I wasn't
board?
there. Oh, the board adjustment?
That's what I mean. I mean, is it five,
six people maybe?
So, and unanimous as well at some.
Yeah, and it was, I wasn't there. The mayor was there. He said he's probably one of the most well-argued cases he'd heard from citizens in almost entire career. They just really did their homework. The other thing is I don't even want to use the word controversy, but the situation where our new police chief's stepdaughter.
I was going to bring it up because certainly
some trouble with the law. Mm-hmm. People were saying, well, why is it not being talked about? Well, there's really nothing to talk about as long as it's under investigation. The Wapello County Attorney's Office is doing the investigations because there was a conflict of interest, obviously, here at the local police enforcement or police office. So I don't have any details. I don't know anything other than what was put in the paper. No one on the city side does because that's not our role. We're not in the judiciary system. We're legislators. We create policy. We create ordinances. We don't try people or create organize investigations. So, there's nothing to say from the city side except for it's under investigation. And people think, well, nothing's being talked about. That's fishy. It's like, well, there's nothing to talk about. Now, the timing of the accident and the timing of when the young lady stepped forward, yeah, somebody could say, well, what's up with that? Well, that's a question, and then the answer will come when the investigation is complete.
WHO did a pretty, they showed up and did a pretty tough piece, looking at the timing and the coincidences and asked for the police chief, just when did he know? Because, that's pretty critical in the whole mix. We were there, of course, that night that he was sworn in or whatever that was called. And,
yep.
It is just one of those things that certainly is more than an eyebrow raiser, probably two eyebrow raiser. And to wait for what comes down is interesting. But, who knew what, when, who talked where, that is where it gets critical, whether there's a responsibility for the city to do that or whether people are willing to answer questions like that when the mayor knew or whatever. I think those are interesting questions, so we'll see how it comes down. But, it's not something that happens every day, that's for sure.
No, it's unusual such circumstances.
For what it seems like so far.
Yeah, but again, it's, those are questions to ask, but you can't expect the mayor or the council members or even the police chief to answer them because you can't. Even sometimes if you're a person who's involved in an investigation, you can't talk about it. The mayor was on the jury for one of those real highly covered local murders where one friend shot the other one.
Yes.
He couldn't talk about anything until it was over. And so he come back to work and everyone's curious what's going on. Lips are sealed. That's how it works. So until the investigation is closed, I don't think the police chief, even if he wanted to say something, could say something. I think that he's probably bound by law not to say anything. So there's nothing that can be said until we have some real facts. It'll be interesting. I'm as curious as anyone.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Exactly.
Well, anyway, speaking of just the facts, we're just about out of time. Another city business in the can. Is that the right way to say it?
That's where we like to put them.
Doesn't sound right,
in the can.
Anyway, this is James Moore with Michael Halley. Thank you, Jason Strong, for being here. And we'll go out with our music here. Want to remind you, coming up, great show with Dennis Ramundi talking to Ben Wolf, one of Fairfield's, used to live here, and now he's the star of an FX show, American Horror Story, 6 million viewers. I think he might have been in Roland Wells' class, but Ben Foster, you think of all these people through, it's pretty amazing, but that's another subject, and that's for another time. This is James Moore. Thanks for tuning in.